Malloy is in his 8th month as governor. His management style is starting to take shape. We're here now with Stuart of CTNewsJunkie.com, a regular contributor. Always good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So 8 months now, we see him doing his thing. You know, one way to measure a leader, particularly a governor, is how they do in crisis, right, when you have these storms. So what are we seeing so far? We're seeing a guy who likes to engage the media, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he is front and center. He is up in the helicopter when we have the hurricane. He is, out on the roads when, we had the blizzard this year. He is a hands-on leader.
Almost to the point where, he enjoys the media to the point where you see him sometimes saying, gee, is he on again? Is he too media friendly? Is this guy too accessible?
I wouldn't say that. There are some times that
I think you would.
they could be he could be more accessible in different ways, but he is accessible. If you need to ask him a question, you're going to get your question asked.
He seems to relish this job, really enjoyed being governor and being involved in the thick of things. And you said something when you were on last time that really struck me, and I'll say it again. You said that you thought he had much higher ambitions. You felt he wants to be president one day, and that struck me. And I've been watching for signs of that. You still feel that? This is the guy who's thinking down the road that I'm planting some seeds for a presidency?
Well, what's interesting is actually during the recent hurricane, I thought, I was actually stuck out of state for a while, so I was watching the national media, and there was no news about Connecticut. It kept going to New Jersey or New York, and I was like, where's Connecticut? What's going on in Connecticut? And basically, I found out later that he had declined 50 national media interviews during the hurricane, that he wanted to focus on the state of Connecticut, and he wanted to focus on the situation here, and he didn't. He did end up doing one or two towards the end of the situation.
So if there is an ego there for presidency, he's able to at least keep that in check in a situation like that and say, well, okay, let me handle business here, right? Now, another way to measure leadership is the people they appoint, the people they put in there. And so far he's hired several of his cabinet members now. I think they're all filled up. We just talked about the new education commissioner, Stephen Pryor, which is a dynamic choice to bring in a guy who hasn't been a teacher, who's been a charter school advocate, who's been a city leader. What did that choice tell you about Dan Malloy? That was an extraordinary pick. That was
that was his last choice, and I think one of his first choices, which was also a non-traditional choice, was Supreme Court Justice Joette Katz to lead the Department of Children and Families. So I think he values work ethic, and I think he does think outside of the box, and things don't always have to fit the mold that state government has kind of fallen into over the past few years.
So we have DCF in place. We have Ben Barnes, the budget director, is in place. We'll talk about him in a second. We have the state police chief is now in place. Transportation. We'll take a look at all those different players. Any rhyme or reason, when we look at all the different players he's put in place now, are we seeing a trend, the kind of people, you mentioned work ethic, what else are we seeing when we look at Ben Barnes and Reuben Bradford and Stephen Pryor, et cetera? What are we seeing?
Work ethic, ability to manage their employees and their management within their agency, and there's, little tolerance for things that happen. Reuben Bradford, I think, was an excellent choice in that he was a former state trooper. And
which one is it? This is the new commissioner?
This is the new commissioner of public safety.
Right, Reuben Bradford. Let's talk about him. What does he bring to the table?
He was a state trooper, so he worked his way up through the ranks, and, he left for a while to be the head of security for the NFL. But he came back to the state to take this position, and it was a pay decrease for him when he came back.
Although he probably has some money salted away from retirement in his previous job. So
exactly.
You're right. He's putting together some cash flows there.
Right, exactly. He's about, he's in his 60s. So.
Right. It's like John Rowland now. You look at John Rowland to change gears completely between the radio show and his pension and his job in Waterbury. He's making more money now than he was before he was governor. About cash flow, Christine. Remember that cash flow.
A lot of these guys are actually making more money than the governor. The governor makes $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
Many of these appointments, almost all of them, are making more than he is.
We'll talk about Nancy Wyman for a second. We'll change gears from the appointments.
Sure.
Nancy Wyman. Now, is he trying to use her more? And tell me how she compliments him, Lieutenant Governor. How should he use her more, if you want to put your opinion hat on? And how's he trying to use her to compliment him?
Well, I think he's put her in charge of certain areas, like she's in charge of healthcare, and she has gone, and they kind of divided up the state and went around during the recent hurricane situation, and she does kind of soften the blow for people who are kind of opposed to some of the things that he's ready to go forward with.
He can come out kind of strong. During the early debates when he was campaigning, some feel that he can have it in too high of a gear, and she sort of adds a little more balance, right?
She does, yeah.
Do you see her role emerging? Lieutenant governors sort of have a secondary role they should. Do you see her playing a more prominent role as they emerge down the road?
I think it's possible. I mean, she has been in on all of the budget meetings, and he actually complains that she has the better office.
Does she?
She does, actually.
How'd she pull that off?
It was always the lieutenant governor's office. It's much bigger and more
Just
spacious.
Flip a coin? Heads or tails?
I don't know. The second floor was always the governor. The third floor always the lieutenant governor. So they just kind of went into their offices.
So maybe she has the future. Maybe her future is brighter than him down the road, right?
I don't know.
So what to look for now? We have the budget cuts going into place, right? We see that just recently cut another $125 million, $500 million. What can we see now down the road? There's state police been cut, prisons have been cut. At some point, you got to suspect there's going to be a price to pay, an unintended consequence somewhere. As a journalist or reporter, where do you suspect we might see the first unintended consequence of all these cuts? Public safety?
Well, I mean, he's with the budget cuts. I mean, in addition to creating some tension with the unions over the labor concession package, that's not going to go away. And some of these budget cuts, I mean, the commissioners in charge of these agencies are going to have to make some tough decisions, and they're going to be the ones who have to make the decisions. The Early Connections program, which is for infants to 3-year-olds, it's closing admissions for the Department of Developmental Services. So that's going to be an issue.
And always hard to cut crime or cut public safety and claim you're not compromising safety, right? You have a staff, you cut it and tell folks, no, we can still cover what we did. Well, if you did, how come you had that many before? So
well, that lawsuit is still pending, so,
right, so
that is going to go into court. So.
All right. We're pending, too, until next week. Thanks to all our guests, Alex Johnson, we have Christine Stewart, Paul Hoser, Daniel Smith. Don't forget, folks, you can catch our show 24/7 at ctnow.com/Stan. Friend us at Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. For the good folks here at Fox Connecticut, I'm Stan Simpson. The Morning News is next.